Welcome to Roll to Hit Gaming's 15 favorite games.
This time we're going to focus on miniature games.
The way we put together our favorite 15s is that we each do our individual list a bit longer, and then we compare them so that you're getting 15 unique games with no crossover. For Roll to Hit Gaming, I'm Chip.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Lucas.
So to get us started, my number 5 is Rail Raiders Infinite. It's by Ninja Division, and basically you're train robbers, and your miniatures are jumping on the train, starting at the caboose. You're working your way down the train cars, fighting off lawmen, trying to get money, and trying to make it all the way to the engine. It's a dice-chucking good time with a lot of special powers that come out in the cards. It's a lot of fun with those miniatures, and that's Rail Raiders Infinite.
I should have put Chibi Games on my list. This one I like a lot. I like this one, and there's some others. I don't want to spoil it because y'all might have them on your list. But yeah, this game is really cool. The moving up, but it's kind of cutthroat. Some of the guys are like, "I'm going to throw you off the train, and you got to start all the way back at the back." So, yeah, it is. This is a great game.
Yeah, I would agree. Those in the South will get this reference. If you're into just having a pet coon, goofy, good time, this is going to be the kind of game for you. You know, your everything you do is going to be based on you rolling your set of dice and forming a poker hand. That's not a new idea, but in this one, it fits with the theme so well and makes it just a fun thing all the way around.
My number 5 is going to go back into the glory days of Games Workshop, and it's going to be Space Hulk, the sci-fi dungeon crawl from Games Workshop. You are a squad of Space Marines, and your opponent is a squad of Gene Stealers trying to come and eat you. And anybody who's watched the Alien movies will kind of understand exactly what's happening on that ship. So I just like it. I introduced to it years ago. Lucas, we were talking, and I don't know that we've even played it in the last 20 years, but it'll always be a favorite of mine just because the amount of times I have played it, and it's just a really fun, fast game.
That was probably one of the first miniature games that I played, mixing that in with a couple others that, like you said, I don't want to mention because I think they're going to come up. My number 5 is going to be Descent 2nd Edition. And I want to specifically go with the 2nd edition because it, rather than add the campaign mode on as an expansion, it was integrated with how this one works, and I think it works much better than the 1st edition. But the figures they're Fantasy Flight, so they're good quality. And if you're into ever growing a collection of miniatures for your dungeon crawl game, Fantasy Flight will definitely hook you up because this thing gets expansions just like all their other lines do. And there's constantly new lieutenants, new heroes, new monsters to forever expand your game of it. I really enjoyed Descent 2nd Edition.
Yep, that had the command and... Is it the Command and Colors?
No, you're thinking about Battlelore.
I'm thinking about Battlelore. But I do love the miniatures with that particular game. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like that whole system. And again, some more may come up in that system. But the one versus many, I like that. With Descent, you get a feel of, it's sort of like D&D Light, right? So
right.
One player is going to play the Dungeon Master and needs to kind of, you can play it more confrontational if you want, but really I think that Dungeon Master role needs to kind of play to the other players so that everybody has a more positive experience, because some of the scenarios in it, you can really get down on the players and just wipe them out if you choose to, right? So, but yeah, Descent and those type of games in that system, really, really fun.
And those are our number 5s.
Kicking off number 4, I've got a game from Reaper Games and designers Ed Pugh and Gus Lant, and that's Warlord 2nd Edition. This one's going to be pretty much your standard fantasy-based skirmish miniature game, with ruler measurement, throw dice to resolve your actions. Reaper used a what I thought was a really innovative rage system where your character had stats, and it had a line of stats, and when it took a wound, you would move to the next line of stats. And if it had 4 wounds, it had 4 lines of stats. I thought that was really intuitive. I really had a lot of fun playing this game, and their miniatures are fantastic. I suppose if I were going to be disappointed with anything, nothing's happened with it in a long time, and it seems kind of like a dead game. But I still pull it out from time to time and have a ton of fun with Warlord 2nd Edition. And even though there's not new stuff, the books are out there. And, of course, Reaper Miniatures is still producing miniatures, so you could easily pick it up and get into it.
Yeah, when I went to ReaperCon several years ago, I had an elf army, and I actually played in the tournament with it. And to me, that rage system was very easy to get into, very easy to understand. You weren't bogged down with trying to figure out the math of it. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that is a feather in their cap of the system. It's very easy to pick up. And again, like you said, the innovation of as your unit takes damage, its abilities are lessened. Mm-hmm. That's not something you're getting in Games Workshop's Warhammer or 40K or games like that. I don't believe War Machine and Hordes do it that way either, but I'm not a real expert on that. But what I like now is that Reaper has gone to the bone system. You can really get in that game. Like Lucas said, the books are out there. If you're looking for a miniature game to kind of as an introduction or even one just to get in and sort of make it your lifestyle game, the Reaper Bones miniatures are really inexpensive, and you can put an army together pretty
easily.
Cheaply, pretty easily. So that would be another thing to look at in that game. Yep.
Well, for my number 4, I chose a game by CMON that I really enjoyed, and it looks like it's Chibi World because it's Arcadia Quest. This is another one that's a dungeon crawl that kind of evolves through a campaign. You have a book of adventures you can go on, and it's just a lot of fun, and your character, as you're going through the dungeon, you're fighting, hordes of goblins or whatever, and I just always have a good time. My son, the youngest one, he played it with us, and he really had a good time with it too. And that's Arcadia Quest. Yeah.
I'm glad you're giving Chibis more love here. Your whole list's going to be Chibis. But this one, this is the next game. I didn't want to mention it earlier because I didn't know if it was going to be on your list. But this game is so fun, and it's cutthroat, but it's fun cutthroat because of the Chibis, I think, right? You just think you're like in a video game or something, or in a cartoon. I really like Arcadia Quest.
Yeah, that's a good time. The interesting thing is to win, you're going to complete several different kinds of quests, and some of those are PvP quests, and that's what Joey really attached himself to. He went around trying to take out the other players. He really enjoyed that factor of it, but you also have quests that you do and monsters that you can take out. Cool design.
Yeah. My number 4 is going to be probably one of my most played games ever. And it is definitely for the rules lawyers and the people who like to record keep in games. That game is Battletech by FASA. Map-based, mechanized combat, giant robots shooting each other out, and just the hours and hours. I don't even know if I could say hours anymore. The weeks upon weeks that I've played this game, just marathon weekends of playing it, over the summer, marathon weeks of playing it. And it's just so fun. There is a lot of record keeping. You're tabulating every piece of damage on your mech in different locations, wherever you're getting hit. But if you like that kind of system, it's just really fun, tactical game.
I didn't play it that much, but and it was very meaty as far as building your mech and all the things you had to keep track of, and it took a while to play. They're moving slow when you're shooting, and then if you alpha strike, well, then you shut down and you have to. There's a lot to remember. Like if you're damaged and you go into water, it could cause more damage. So it's very intricate. But if you like that meaty, it's a good game to do that.
And those are our number 4s.
Well, for our number 3s, I'll start off a game that came out a few years ago now, and for a while there was one of my lifestyle games. I got in at the very beginning of it and had aspirations of collecting the entire set, and that was quickly, because of Fantasy Flight's release schedule, blown out of the water. That game is X-Wing, the miniature game. Now, of all of these, we jumped into these style of games with X-Wing and with Star Trek at the same time. And I got to give the advantage to X-Wing because it feels more like a dogfight to me. But I played plenty of Star Trek, enjoyed it too. The flight path system is really what I'm talking about when I list this as my number 3. Because I think now they have a D&D version that we sort of dipped our toe into but never really got far into. Really fun, tactical, open table. Flight path system has little rulers that Fantasy Flight makes to depending on what distance and what vector that you're moving on. The hidden movement of setting your dial, I really liked that. You're doing that simultaneously, and then you're kind of at the whim of the decision you made with your opponent. If you have an opponent that's silly, then you may get into trouble. But if not, you're going to have a good time. And it's very competitive, and the organized play is just through the roof with Fantasy Flight. So X-Wing miniature game, definitely on my top list.
Yeah, I think that flight path maneuver system is brilliant. And the thing that, in my opinion, the thing that X-Wing does better than most is integrate the theme of that Star Wars space dogfight with its mechanics perfectly. You actually get that feel, and the crazy dogfights that LucasArts has done for you over the years in the movies. You're reenacting that, your own battles there, and it's done through that flight path maneuver system, that hidden movement, the special abilities that the pilots have, and the things that you can upgrade onto them. Because I think in these kind of games, in this one particularly, I think there's 2 keys. Understanding how that movement works and the building of your list before the battle even begins. And all of those play together and make this a lifestyle game that if you're into Star Wars and you're into miniature games, it's something I would recommend you jumping into. I'm going to stick with that same IP for my number 3 and list Imperial Assault from Fantasy Flight. This takes that Descent-style dungeon crawl and sets it in the Star Wars universe. I really don't know what else I have to say about that.
I loved it. The fact that you're kind of playing out a story is the part that I really enjoy. Not only are you playing the Wookiee, right, but you're trying. You have missions to complete, and Darth Vader will pop in every once in a while, and if you can run him off, it's like cheers erupt around the table. You really get into it. So I find it's a lot of fun.
I like in this one the way that. If you're setting up a campaign, your players have a measure of interaction as to picking some side quests that you're gonna ultimately shuffle up, and maybe they show up or maybe they don't. But now you got the players going, oh yeah, well if we do this one, we could get Luke Skywalker, so let's put that one in because if it comes up, and so it's that kind of pre-setup that I really liked for the campaign. And this game just takes Descent to the next level, and maybe that's because you added Star Wars.
Yes, the theme, right?
But it's really fun.
But there's a lot of decisions to weigh too, because as the dungeon master, so to speak, I don't know what they call it, but you're playing the Empire, right? So the decisions that they make give you points to let you add more to the game, add more AT-ATs or whatever to help your side confront them. So it's a give and take, right? On what I choose is going to affect what he can bring out.
If you take Luke, you're giving
him a lot.
Oh yeah,
right? So that's fun. My number 3 was a game that was actually chosen by my oldest boy. He wanted it for his Christmas, and it was Mechs versus Minions. He's really into the video games. So when he saw that this one that came out, and it's basically a programming game, and that these students have built up these mechanoid battle robots that they're moving around the board. And as the game goes on, the objectives get a little bit harder and a little bit harder. So you kind of learn the game as you go, which I really like that, and that's great, I think, for kids. But these little minions just come out MOBA style, right? And they're just constantly coming at you. It's fun. It's exciting. And I've never seen a lull in the game at all. And that's Mechs versus Minions by Riot Games.
This is one of those we were playing, and we had to tell ourselves, look, the minions won't stop. We have an objective we need to do, and we're having so much fun blowing up the little minions that we're not getting anywhere, right? Yeah, it is a really fun game.
Yeah, for me, it says a lot. You know, I passed judgment on League of Legends a long time ago, and I'm not involved in that. So I knew nothing about it. And then they were like, hey, it's a programming game, and I don't want to do that either. But, you know, your kid wants it, so what do you do? And this game changed my mind because it's just fun. And I think that's a good mark for a game that can take someone who's against it and through the course of playing it, make you enjoy it. So, great game.
That's our number 3s.
So for my number 2, I chose another game that reminds me a lot of Arcadia Quest, and but it's by CMON, and I love CMON games. And this one is Zombicide Black Plague. Again, you are kind of like with Arcadia Quest. You have a character. The unique thing with Zombicide is the character has its own. I don't know, kind of like you have this deck that's in front of you, and your character sheet slides into it, and as you go, you're moving things along, and you're adding things to it, and you have armor that you get to have, and you're going through, and you're fighting these plagued out zombies, right. I guess, but it's a dungeon crawl, and it's story based, kind of like with Arcadia Quest, and I just had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. Had a lot of fun too. CMON is getting this right. They're progressing through this game. I played Zombicide the original and hated it. Couldn't stand it. But everything that I hated about Zombicide, they fixed in Zombicide Black Plague. So I really enjoy that. And recently, the Massive Darkness has come to the door, which is kind of the next iteration. It's in that same universe. And really, the only negative I had about Zombicide Black Plague was I thought that the campaign system could be a little more beefy. And in Massive Darkness, they kind of did that. Okay. So, yeah, so it seems like, they're learning along the way. But, yeah, Zombicide Black Plague is great, man. I mean, don't take it. It's not a real serious game. It's lighthearted. But you just get some friends together around the board and just have a zombie bash, man. What can be worse than that? Right. I agree. My number 2 is another most played game, and because I come from a long line of miniature games, I guess. But and that's another one from Games Workshop, Necromunda. I like a lot of the Games Workshop games. I play Fantasy, 40K, and all those in between. But of all of them, Necromunda was always the one that I just loved more than any of the others. And I think that's because I've always been more of a campaign style player. I'm really drawn to the campaign aspects of a game, the progressions, starting small and building out either a group or a country or whatever. I guess building, right, is my thing. And Necromunda has that. Of all the Games Workshop games, well, there's Blood Bowl has progression as well. But for this one, you start out with a little rickshaw gang of
a street gang.
Yeah, street gang, greasy kind of spire people, and you build them. You go into these gang wars and you battle your friends, and then you gain experience, and your guys level up and get new skills. And I just like that aspect. I mean, it was, playing the game was only half of the game, because the other half is planning, going through your territories and getting resources and modifying your guys' equipment and, the level up process. So I just always enjoyed it. And of all of these tabletop miniature games, Necromunda was more three-dimensional. So your board had a lot of spires and walkways that you could get shot off of and things. Whereas when we played Warhammer Fantasy or 40K, it was mostly all flat. I mean, right. You might have buildings, but your units never really occupied the buildings. And so I like that part as well. And so Necromunda is definitely high on my list there at number.
It's definitely unique when it came out for its time, because, like you said, with the bigger table games, it's sprawling. Yeah. You had you could do 1,000-point armies and all that. But with Necromunda, it was skirmish based. It was a small troop that went out and battled each other, and like you said, leveling up. And so it was more like in your face, and you could have, instead of 1-on-1, you could have 5 gangs going at it, and you could have objectives or just full out war. So it was fun.
Yeah, you saying for all time makes me feel old there, because I still enjoy that game, and we've been playing it for a long time. But I'm going to give you one from the same publisher that I think is better than that, and that is Blood Bowl. We've been playing Blood Bowl since probably the mid-'90s, back when there was actually a dungeon that you went through to play it. And if you're looking for a combat-themed sports game, or even something that's going to simulate football for you, because there's not another good choice for that out there, it's going to be this one. And basically, you pick a race, and you form a team out of that. There's a little bit of team building within constraints. Then you put it on the pitch, and you cheat. You try to score touchdowns. All of these amazing things. For me, it's a fantastic experience. A great game that fits in about an hour, and I couldn't recommend Blood Bowl higher.
I love the fact that when you're choosing your teams, each one is a little bit different, and you can actually pick one that's close to the way you like to play. Mm-hmm. So if you want something that's, tough and hard to take down, then you're playing the Black Orcs. Mm-hmm. If you want something that's fast and sneaky and cheats a lot, you're playing Skaven. Oh, yeah. So, you can kind of cater your team to how you like to play. And then the crowds can get involved, and they can actually kill a player if they don't like what's going on. The weather, there's just so many little tidbits that enrich it. So I really enjoy Blood Bowl.
Yeah, great game, and I've got to give it to Games Workshop. They're finally bringing these older titles back. And Blood Bowl is one they've re-released that a number of times, but it is in a resurgence right now. And they're doing great things with it. They stayed true to the original rule set, so you don't feel like you're having to learn an entire new system again. If you've played previous systems, you know how to play this game. The very, very minor tweaks. Really, the only one I can think of is that you don't call your opponent out for not moving the turn marker anymore and have them lose a turn, which was kind of the rule nobody liked anyway, right? Because there's so much going on and I just forget. So what? Why do you got to hold it against me? But
we had players who left themselves notes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Put off their ball caps. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and so many great stories to tell about this game. We don't have time for it, but it is a wonderful game, and I'm glad Games Workshop has brought it out, giving it more love.
Those are number 2. I'm going to stick with Games Workshop to kick off my number 1, and this was really the game that transitioned me from Magic into more hobby games and made me fall in love with the idea of putting miniatures on a table, grabbing some dice and tape measures, and going to war, and that's Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Again, like Blood Bowl, we've played this since the mid-'90s, and for me, there has not yet been a finer example of this style of game, and I haven't played it in a couple years, and I don't know when I will play it again, but this one is always going to be a favorite of mine in this genre. Because I have so many fond memories involving Dark Elves and Dwarves and car stereos. So that's why this one had to make number 1 for me.
Sorry. I really enjoy that game too. My favorite part is actually just building my army.
Yeah.
Picking out your general and which ones go well with him. How do you equip them? What monsters can you, because you got a cap on points, right? You choose at the beginning of the battle how many points you're going to do. So, trying to sneak a chimera or whatever into it. So the building of the army is actually my favorite part, moreover than just playing it.
This game for Games Workshop was acquisition disorder before it was cool. Okay, I mean, because you're talking about you'd start off with a little 500-point army, and somebody just trash you on the table, and you're like, oh, I need that giant so I could be better, So you go over the shelf, and now you're sending your cash to Games Workshop. But it's a great game, and both of these Fantasy Battles and 40K, they're large scale tabletop games. Were just so fun coming up, man. And I was just getting into painting miniatures at the time, and this game came along, and that was part of part of the hobby, right? And so that really drew me in to have that. Not only we could play the game, but you were being creative with painting your miniatures and stuff like that too. But yeah, there's a lot of dollars that have gone from Chip's wallet to England because of these games.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I think this is the game that got me started painting too. The idea had never crossed my mind, and you put down your at the time, metal miniatures on the table, and the guy across from you puts down a painted army, and you're like, so yeah, more money to England. So.
Well, my number one, no surprise, goes to CMON. And again, I just love the whole MOBA aspect of minions coming at you, and that is Rum and Bones Second Tide. In that game, you have 5 heroes that are pirates, and you're battling other pirates. And there's this MOBA of minion pirates in the middle, going between the 2 ships, and you got to get past them to get your objectives. And it's just tons and tons of fun. When me and Lucas played, we were focused more on the minions than actually getting our objectives done. So, by the end of it, I think it was a 2-hour game.
Yeah,
it should have been 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's objective based, and we actually played it for 3 hours because we were just throwing dice and killing minions. And then at some point, we were like, they're not going to stop coming.
They're not going to stop.
So it was a lot of fun.
It was. But that would be my number one miniatures game, and that's Rum and Bones Second Tide.
For my number one, I'm going to go. This is an old school game, goes back a long, long way. And I have to say, no offense to the originalists, no offense to the old timers who played before miniatures were incorporated into this game. My number one miniature game is Dungeons and Dragons. I'm talking about the role-playing game, originally from TSR, now with Wizards of the Coast. And, I have played maybe 1 or 2 games without miniatures, but the going on, what has it got to be, Lucas, 30 years that we've been playing this game?
Yeah, I appreciate you dating me.
We have... He's much older than 30. We've always played...
I'm in my prime.
Yeah. We've always played with miniatures, and it just adds so much to the immersion of the game. And that's what actually started me in the miniature painting arena, and then moved on to the other miniature games. So I just it's hard to top your first love, I guess.
When did we start? Was it second edition?
Yes. We started. I played a few games of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons first edition, and then second edition came out, and that's when we all kind of met and started.
Went through all the iterations, 3.5 and Pathfinder eventually. So, it's a great game. Just getting the friends together and going on an adventure, it's well worth the time you put into it.
Yeah, I don't know that it's a miniatures game unless you make it that. But I guess my point there is this is one of those games that, and this style of game may be unique in this regard. They are exactly what you make them. Yes. They are exactly what you put into them. And, we like you said, when we started, we didn't have miniatures, and that added a visual, tactile, even in some cases, strategic, right? Because then you could use the rules for flanking and all that stuff rather than just, I go around the other side of him. It's going to be everything you want it to be as long as you're willing to put that into it. And for that reason, it's an unbelievable, iconic game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there they are, guys. Those are our favorite 15 miniature games. We hope you've enjoyed this. If you've got any comments, please leave them below. Start a discussion. Tell us what your favorite miniature games are. For Roll to Hit Gaming, I'm Chip.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Lucas.